afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Alyssa Corum here, and I'm joined by Justin Nielsen. We have a lot to talk about today, don't we, Justin?
Yeah, my fault. I just couldn't decide. So we'll go ahead and start with, of course, the markets, but then also we'll get into audio codes, big breakout there.
Mhm.
Home builders, a big move in the industry group today on that one, and Zebra Technologies setting up.
Yes. All right. Well, first, let's kick things off with a look at the major indexes. This is a chart of the S&P 500 here, which gained 0.6% for the day. So did the Dow, and we had the Nasdaq finishing up about 0.25% here. So, taking a look at the S&P, we've been eyeing this breakout over this, 3,200 area.
Yeah, and we kind of just edged up a little bit more on the S&P 500 today, so that was positive. In fact, the S&P 500 was really kind of outpacing the market for most of the day, and it wasn't really until the end of the day that the Nasdaq, had
Mhm.
spent a lot of time in negative territory, and the Nasdaq started coming on a little bit stronger, but as you mentioned, still below where the S&P 500 finished off. Now, of course, the Nasdaq had yesterday's downside reversal that it's dealing with right now, and usually you do expect some weakness after you see a downside reversal, and we did see that. Even though we closed in positive territory for the day, we did get that initial weakness again, just as you would expect with that downside reversal. But I think more importantly, right now, kind of our lines in the sand that we're looking at is if you draw a line from the low of July 6th, that was that gap up, kind of that area, yeah, right there, that low right there. And then we kind of, before we had that dramatic reversal on the 13th of July, if you go to the high of the 10th, and draw a line there, so just below that, the day before, there you go, right there. This is where a lot of the activity has been happening on the NASDAQ. And so we
Mhm.
kind of fell back to that area. The question is, do we get support here? Or does it fall back into that area and kind of, doodle around there? That would actually be a good thing. It would kind of bring it back to the 21-day moving average line. That's kind of what we were hoping for and expecting. But Monday kind of turned that all on its head.
Yeah.
Right now, you have last Monday and last Tuesday as kind of your outliers there. They're kind of making that big move up and that big move down. But again, you see a lot of that area between the 6th and the 10th as where we're at right now. Now, one other thing that I was talking about with Chris Gessel today is our real hope is that we come down slowly, not quickly like we did on the 11th of June or on the 13th of July, but a slow move down to 10,000, because if we do it slow enough, what would happen is the 50-day moving average line would be coming up to meet the index falling down to that level, and that would be a great area to get support. But
Yeah.
near
And a
term,
much
the
more
21.
sustainable
Yes.
trajectory, right?
The biggest issue we have right now, and Chris is very funny the way he describes it, but it's a little scary when you get this extended. Even at our lows today, we were still 8% above the 50-day moving average line for the
Mhm.
Nasdaq.
All right. Well, some great analysis there, Justin. Let's take a look at some stocks on our radar today. A breakout from audio codes in the enterprise software group, which we have talked about the strength of this group nonstop, in a breakout here today with a gain of over 10%, heavy volume, and that relative strength line at a new high, confirming the move.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that people have to realize, that even though there are these companies that are, based overseas, this one is an Israeli designer, it's you still have the access to a lot of these companies if they trade on US exchanges, and you don't have to worry about, the foreign exchanges. So Audio Codes is one that has been on the IBD 50 for quite a while, and pattern recognition on MarketSmith identified this breakout very early in the morning, and it really started jamming very, very quickly. I saw the alert come out from MarketSmith in the first 5 minutes of trading, and it seemed like this was going to be out of there. But if you go to the intraday chart, this is kind of like an opportunity for a second chance potentially. You'll see this a lot of times where even though you had that big strong move and it really put it out of the buy range. Normally, we have the buy point at 40.16. The buy range would go all the way up to 42.17. That's 5%. And it did
Mhm.
get back down there as it pulled back in that, right around 7:30. It was all the way back down into the 41 area. And so it did get back into that buy range. So if something does leave the station without you, you might just see if it does take a pause, because we don't like buying stocks extended. You just run a
Right.
huge risk of getting shaken out in a pullback.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because looking at today, it did close, 7% above this buy point here. So if you weren't able to act on this one today, what sort of action would you want to be looking from here? Either a gentle pullback into
Yeah.
the buy range, or maybe see it trade tight here for a couple days?
Yeah, trading tight here for a couple days. And this is where, again, it could be tricky because this could be down 3% tomorrow and still look perfectly normal. It would be an inside day, nothing to worry about. So yeah, if it does get into that buy range, and again, MarketSmith makes this easy for you with the pattern recognition. It identifies that buy range with
Yes.
that little shaded blue box right there. So if you see it start getting back into that area, you could potentially, start a position there. I usually like to wait for some strength to come back in. I
Yes.
don't like buying on weakness. But yeah, if it comes down into there and then starts moving back up again, just like we saw it do intraday today, that could be a place to pick up shares.
Perfect. Well, really quickly, we want to
Oh,
touch
but I
on
should also
all these.
mention that
Oh,
we also do have earnings coming up on that one. I
yes,
believe July
yes. You're
28th
always great
before
about
the
pointing
open.
that out.
Yeah, so
Perfect. Yes, and Ollie's, we touched on this yesterday in the Stock Market Today show, had a huge gain today, also up over 10%, huge volume. But Ed and I talked about how it was coming down to this 10-week line and rebounding and strengthening today. So just another great reason why our audience should tune into Stock Market Today every day
don't miss a
to
day,
catch things like this.
or
Yeah.
or you might miss a 10% move. So.
Okay, and we have a lot to talk about in the home builder group because
Oh
we
yeah.
did see a strong rebound from existing home sales, Justin, with a 20.7% increase from May. And we've been talking about LGI Homes. This is a leaderboard name, and it's definitely proving itself to be a leader here.
Yeah, and so sometimes this train has obviously left the station. This
Yeah.
is one of the big leaders, and leaderboard has it on. They really nailed this one. There are some other ones that are setting up. Pulte Homes, for example, PHM. That one looks like a decent breakout today, but guess what? It has earnings tomorrow. This is going to be a recurring theme for the next few
Yeah.
weeks. Earnings coming up, earnings coming up. So earnings
Mhm.
before the close tomorrow. I think you have Meritage that has earnings after the close today. So one of the ways that you can play this group move is with ITB, which is the iShares US Home Construction ETF, which gets you access to a lot of these home builders as a basket of stocks. And so this is actually one that we put on Swing Trader last week. And so we've been actually taking profits on the way up on this one. We took profits earlier, just peeled a third off, and then we took another third off today because again we're selling into that strength. But this is a way that you can kind of play the group if you think that there's a lot of potential with the home builders. And right now this chart is showing that there is strength there, and that was the number one industry group percentage wise move today.
Right, especially since we do have, like you mentioned, the leader in the group, not in a proper buy area,
Yeah,
and earnings season could be
and a lot of earnings
a
coming
potential,
in.
a catalyst for a group move here. So we'll keep an eye on that. But we wanted to wrap things up with a look at Zebra Technologies, ZBRA, which is setting up nicely in this cut base here, just under that 280 level, Justin.
Yes, and if you go to the weekly chart on this one of the points I wanted to make is that this is a pattern that you're seeing a lot, this kind of base on base pattern. Granted, this is, the relative strength is not nearly what it was in that big move that it had in 2017, 2018, but it does look like it's stabilizing, and we had that big move down, and a big deep base, but now this base that it's forming is much tighter. You're seeing that a lot. And again,
Yes.
this makes me feel a little bit better. Deep bases always make me nervous, but when I can kind of see more orderly action and it kind of turn into that, that makes me feel a little bit better. But of course, this one does also have earnings coming up July 28th before the open. So
It
just be
does.
aware of that.
But I will say a good thing about having a lot of these stocks setting up in bases heading into their quarterly earnings reports is you can either take advantage of IBD's earnings option strategy
Sure.
or look for those earnings gaps, which we really like seeing those stocks making those big moves out of bases on earnings. And our research shows that often that is a precursor to even further gains. So
yeah, so two
it's just
ways you could
another way
play
to
this.
play these.
If you buy it now, you kind of hope that you get enough of a cushion before the July 28th earnings that you can, hold on to it through earnings. Or ideally, if this kind of handled out right here, just kind of took a little pause, which again, if the market does that, you would expect a lot of stocks to do that as well. And that could be perfect because then the handle would form over the next week. The earnings would come out. That could be the catalyst that moves it higher. And guess what? If it doesn't break out, you're not buying it. Don't try and anticipate and say, oh, I'm going to be so
Yes.
smart and get in early. Because if that breakout doesn't happen, then your likelihood of success goes way down. So,
That's
always
right.
wait for the sign.
Yeah, or I mean, there have been other cases where you see an initial pop on earnings and then a downside reversal, and that's never fun to get caught in. So
Yeah, exactly.
you definitely
And
want to
that's
be
why it's
on guard.
and that's why you definitely don't want to buy extended, because if you bought at the high and then you get that downside reversal, then you can get in trouble real fast.
All right. Well, plenty to talk about always, but especially now as this rally continues and we're seeing more setups and heading into earnings season. So thanks so much for joining us today, everyone. And just a reminder that it is leaderboard free access week.
Mhm.
And Justin, you were able to give us and our audience the inside scoop on that yesterday in a webinar, you and Dave.
Yeah, and what we were really talking about, I mean, the theme was, the stock price is right, and getting your buying right is going to solve half of your holding and selling problems, which I think is the toughest thing that a lot of people struggle with their portfolios. So, buying right is essential, but Leaderboard can really help you out because, as I mentioned yesterday, on the team we have a number of people, and each one has over 2 decades of experience with the markets, specifically doing this IBD style of trading. So it's a lot of experience that you're getting, kind of guidance and charts marked up for you, and
Yep.
and specific stocks chosen. Ollie's, I should mention,
Yes.
was one of the stocks on Leaderboard right now.
Yeah, and a really great track record with Leaderboard as well, with some pretty huge winners this past quarter, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's you think of the big ones, and Leaderboard has them. I mean, from Amazon, Tesla,
Yep.
Shopify, Cloudflare. I mean, the list goes on. We've got about 21
Yep.
stocks on there right now, and you look
And
at
we
it and
bought
it's
them
a
right.
yes,
Bought them at
yes,
the right
and
price.
bought at the right price, exactly. So a lot of
Perfect.
cushion, especially because a lot of that buying was started in April when a lot of people were feeling very uncertain about the market.
All right. Well, good stuff. We hope you check out Leaderboard Free Access Week. Thanks so much for breaking all of that down for us, Justin. And once again, thanks so much for tuning in to Stock Market Today. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.